You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Awakened by a racket in the middle of the night, a horse owner discovers a horrifying scene in her barn. Find out what happened next in this episode of Barn Stories.
Welcome to the Barn Stories podcast. I'm Lori Prinz, editor of Equus Magazine.
And I'm managing editor Christine Barakat.
This podcast features our favorite essays and articles published in Equus over the past 40 years. Although Equus is known for articles on horse care and veterinary research, our editorial mission has always been guided by the bond that exists between horses and people. And each issue has featured a real-life story that celebrates how horses enrich our lives and touch our hearts.
We've searched our archives, chosen the stories that resonated with our readers, and given them new life in this audio format. Longtime subscribers may recognize some of their favorite pieces. And if you're new to the Equus community, these stories will confirm that no matter what sort of saddle you sit in, a deep emotional connection to horses is something we all share.
The story in this episode recounts a nightmare scenario. A freak accident leaves the horse with his hind leg trapped between the bars of the stall. His owner finds him effectively hanging upside down from his fetlock in the dead of night. Her account of that night is raw, honest, and riveting.
The day this essay arrived in our email, we knew we'd be publishing it. But we also wanted to know the rest of the story. So for the next 6 months, we worked with the author to turn this essay about one harrowing night into a full article that recounts a year of recovery, rehabilitation, and hope.
The story that was built around the essay you're about to hear would go on to win first place in the horse care category of the 2022 American Horse Publication Equine Media Awards. We were honored and delighted to receive the award, but we really weren't surprised. This story is exceptional by any measure.
So let's listen to Hanging in the Balance, written by Wendy Walker and read by Taylor Autumn. After you listen, head over to equusmagazine.com to read the full award-winning article.
At 2:15 a.m. on April 20th, 2020, during the early, uncertain days of the pandemic, a violent banging noise woke me. The sound was coming from our stable, just down the hill from our house. I was accustomed to hearing the occasional clunking of hooves, snorting, and other noises that are inevitable when horses live together, so I didn't think much of it. Soon, all was quiet, and I drifted back to sleep. But before long, I was jolted awake again by a series of banging noises. I sat upright in bed, threw off the covers, and told my sleeping husband Mike that something was wrong. As I rushed down the path to the stable, I glanced up at the starry sky and tried to remember how to tie ropes to a horse's lower legs to help him roll over if he's cast, stuck too close to a wall. I saw the silhouette of my Mustang, Yogi, watching me from his corral as I rushed toward the heavy barn doors. I heard grunts and a prolonged groan, then more banging. All was dark in the stable as I entered and reached for the light switch. With the breezeway light flooded in, I looked into the stalls and saw Artero, my 4-year-old buckskin Lusitano gelding, collapsed on the floor with his hind leg trapped up high, through the bars of an iron stall divider. His body was hanging by his delicate hind fetlock. I squeezed my eyes shut. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Artero has big hooves, and the stall bar space was narrow. It made no sense. Artero groaned and twisted his head to look at me. Blood trickled from his mouth, and sweat darkened his golden neck. I wanted to rush in to help, but I knew that I had to stay away from his legs and his huge head, even as he rested. At any moment, he could start thrashing again. So I grabbed a towel and covered his eyes, hoping that would help him relax. I searched my phone for the veterinarian's emergency numbers, while Artero intermittently fought by launching his body side to side and kicking the wall with his other legs. His trapped leg was fully extended upward as he pushed away. He twisted and pulled, but he could not free himself. The heel bulb and fetlock, anchoring his 1,110-pound body, dripped blood down both sides of the wall. I tried pushing his foot from the other side of the bar, but I couldn't. Helpless, I adjusted the towel covering his eyes. "It's okay. Easy. It's going to be okay," I murmured, trying to calm him. I could only hope he would be still.
No one knows your horse's thoughts, emotions, and moods as well as you. Just as in touch as you are with their personality, Sentinel's expert nutritionists are in tune with their dietary needs. With feeds in the form of extruded nuggets to provide exceptional nutrition and formulas made for every life stage and activity level, Sentinel's wide choice of carefully crafted feeds makes it easy to find the perfect fit to better your horse's health. Learn more at feedsentinel.com/health. That's feedsentinel.com/health.
With the phone to my ear, I flew up the path and roused in my groggy husband, telling him I needed his help. I knew we may be on our own. Many veterinarians were unavailable at that point of the pandemic. There was no improvement in the situation when we got back to the barn a few minutes later. Artero had shrugged off the towel I placed over his eyes, and he continued to sweat. I slathered his stuck hoof with Vaseline and tried pushing again from the other side of the stall divider. His hoof is bigger than the space it had squeezed through. With tremendous force, Artero must have kicked upward, pointing his toe, and then tilted and rotated at the right angle just at the right time to slide through the bars. I could picture him giving Yogi, his neighbor and friend, a playful look, then shaking his mane, kicking out, and finding himself on 3 legs with the 4th trapped up high. Artero must have wondered what had happened, lost his balance, and then folded down to the floor. Since then, he had alternated between thrashing and resting, thrashing and resting. I told Mike that we most likely have to end this misery. His trap leg must be broken. I had left messages with the emergency line at my regular veterinary service, Napa Valley Equine, and the office of another veterinarian, Peter Ahern, DVM, over on the Sonoma side of our mountain. Both were a good 40-minute drive, at best, but I texted them and called again and again. Certain my beautiful Artero was broken beyond healing, I begged them, "Please come quickly, this is an emergency. You may have to euthanize." I was on the phone with the emergency veterinarian when Ahern called back, saying he was on the way. Both veterinarians could hear Artero thrashing and groaning in the background. The wait seemed impossibly long. We tried to think of solutions, though my heart was breaking. While I comforted Artero, Mike gathered tools from his workbench and tried sawing the steel bars. Then he pried from various angles using a crowbar, but nothing worked. I massaged Artero's ears and neck and comforted him in a soothing tone. "I'm sorry, Artero. We're here. Easy." When Ahern arrived, he gave the gelding a sedative, which calmed him. Next, Ahern set about trying to free the trapped hoof. He repeated things Mike had tried, saw and crowbar, with no luck. Then he and Mike tried 2x4 wood wedges with the crowbar to get more leverage. That didn't work either. It felt hopeless. Finally, with a sheer burst of determination, Ahern hoisted the sledgehammer and swung it into the bar, trapping the hoof. Bang, bang, bang. He aimed just above Artero's trapped fetlock joint. Bang, bang, bang. I flinched with each impact. Sure, if entrapment didn't break Artero's leg, the heavy sledgehammer certainly would. The bars vibrated and spread just enough to let me push the hoof free, blood dripping down from my wrists. With a thud, Artero's freed leg fell to where it belonged. I noticed his labored breathing, and we waited. He folded his legs, then rocked his body until he had his knees underneath. And, with a giant grunt, he was standing. Gingerly, he rested his right hind. 3 humans stood by, observing this primal instinct to survive. He balanced on 3 legs, holding the other hoof aloft. Ahern examined and palpated Artero's ravaged leg and body but didn't say a word. My mind raced as he worked. Was this kind man trying to find a way to gently tell me that my horse was a goner? Was he making a mental list of all the horrible damage he was feeling with his experienced hands? With a deep sigh and shake of his head, Ahern finally said, "I don't feel anything broken." He recommended 10 days of stall rest, topical antibiotic, and an oral anti-inflammatory. As we watched, Artero stepped carefully outside to his water trough and drank deeply, then hobbled inside to chew a bite of hay.
Thanks for listening to Barn Stories. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a favorite article or essay from the Equus archives that you'd like us to feature in a future podcast, let us know. You can reach us at equusbarnstories, all one word, @gmail.com.
Did you enjoy this episode of Barn Stories? Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Thanks for listening. The Barn Stories podcast is a production of the Equine Podcast Network, an entity of the Equine Network.